Hi, I'm Courtney with the Cannons Photography, husband and wife wedding photographers for kind-hearted couples who also serve incredibly successful business owners who love to serve their couples to level up their businesses and create a life they love. Today, we are so excited to share with you what lenses we use throughout the wedding day. Before we get started, don't forget to grab our Wedding Day Handbook freebie. It is customizable and a great tool to enhance your overall client experience and your organization on a wedding day. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. First of all, it's always my husband and I, so I'll refer to different pieces and parts that we both use throughout the wedding day. We primarily have our 50mm 1.2 L series RF lens on our bodies. I have one and Robert has the non-RF version. So when we start the day with our details and in our getting ready spaces, we have our 50mm on. When I'm doing ring shots or close-ups of some of the details, I will go ahead and swap it for my 100mm. This is a macro lens and makes those perfect ring shots exactly the way you would love to see them. Then I switch back to my 50mm to have just a very cohesive, beautiful look in the getting ready space. If I need something that's a wider lens because the space is just too tight to stick to my 50, then I will put my RF 28-70 on, which has an aperture of 2.0, so it still allows us to shoot with our style that we are used to and produce beautiful images. Can't show you that one right now because it is recording our video. From there, at our ceremony, I typically stick with the 50. The 50 is my go-to, and to be honest, it wasn't always the case. For a long time, I used the 35 for processionals, and then I switched to the 28-70. I ended up switching back to the 50 to have more cohesive consistency in our work, and sometimes the 28-70 can have some distortion with it, so we were better off sticking with our 50. When we're at the ceremony, I use the 50. Robert typically puts on the 70-200. We do a lot of big church weddings, Catholic masses, and sometimes we can't be up close, and we always want to be respectful of the rules for each church. So having this giant zoom lens, which gives them a little bit of a workout, is the perfect option to make sure that we can still get some close-up, more creative shots, and we have a great variety. Having the 50 or a more wide-angle lens on allows me to back up and get the full picture while also having a variety for everybody as they're coming down the aisle for the processional. When it comes time for portraits, I typically stick with my 50. It's wide enough that it still works for our bridal party photos, and if I need to, or if I have time to for portraits, I will put on my 85. The 85 is by far my favorite lens. If I have time to switch over to it for portraits, I absolutely will. Lots of times though, depending on the setting. If we're in a place with giant architecture and huge buildings and not a whole lot of place to back up, or if there's tons of bridal parties everywhere, which often happens at some of our locations that we go to, then sticking with the 50, being a little closer to our couples and not having to yell quite as loud like we do with the 85 is a great option. But both are going to create gorgeous results. Robert is typically on the 70-200. However, when we go and we split the ladies and the gentlemen for bridal party portraits, then he will switch over to our other 50 or the 28-70 to take those photos. When we switch to the next part of the day into the reception, I'm still doing a little bit of both. Robert's probably still on his 70-200. He might pull out that wide angle, but I'm primarily on my 50. And when I'm shooting those photos, I'm going to get them both with the big pictures first and then in closer. And sometimes if I have time in the reception space, I will throw on my 85 and get some of those really dreamy photos as well. When it comes time for the toast, we stick with our 50 and 70 to 200. The 50 allows me to get those classic shots of the couple. I will move my feet some to have some different angles. And the 70 to 200 allows Robert to not only get some of the couple, but also everyone else around us in the crowd as well. This allows him to really capture those emotion-filled moments when the whole room is laughing and mom's wiping away a tear from her eye without intruding or feeling too up close in the moment. When we go into the dances, you bet, I'm still on my 50, and he's on his 70 to 200. We know that I'm going to be getting the wide shots while he's going to be zooming in a little closer and getting some of those more intimate shots. And it works really well for us because we don't even have to communicate anymore, and we know exactly who is grabbing what. During the dancing, if it gets really dark, we will go ahead and not only would we put our flashes on, but that's for a different day. Today's about lenses, but I will often switch to the 28 to 70. I've just found that on the dance floor, it's fantastic to have a really wide lens, and it seems to be better with the low light than the 50 is sometimes. Our RF 50 is definitely faster than our non-RF lens, but when it gets dark, it still gets a little temperamental. So I prefer to go ahead and throw on the 28 to 70, and Robert typically uses the 70 to 200. He doesn't like to get up into the space like I do, so he kind of stands from afar. We hope that this was helpful for you today and that it's great to see what other photographers do throughout the wedding day. Remember that just because one person does one way doesn't mean it's the only way and the best way. You can experiment to see what works for you too. Don't forget to grab our freebie, our Wedding Day Guide Handbook. The link is below. It will help you to best serve your couples throughout their day, and you can customize it special for them. Bye. Have a great day.